Hello, 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 and welcome back to A Little Birdie Told You. I am your host, Krista Knight.
And I'm your host, Kelly Knight.
And today the topic of discussion is going to be relationships. And when I say relationships, I know a majority are automatically going to go straight to romantic relationships because I think that's where our minds go. But I'm going to be talking about a little bit of every relationship, but most important, the relationship with ourselves. So when I mean relationships, I mean parental relationships, sibling relationships, platonic relationships, romantic relationships. I mean them all because they encompass what relationships mean. But I notice that most of the time, people don't mention the relationship with themselves. They automatically tend to talk about the external factors that compose a relationship. So they'll be like, oh, yeah, my friends, my family, yeah, this, that. And they have, they all have a significance of importance in their life. So they're like, oh, my friends mean the most to me, or my romantic partner means the most to me, or my family means the most important to me. And we all have different values. For me, my values, I place myself first. And I think a lot of people are like, that's selfish, that's arrogant. But if you think about it, at the end of the day, the only person you have is yourself. Throughout your whole life, that's the only person you're ever going to have is yourself. No matter who comes and goes out of your life, the only person you're going to have is yourself. And the way I look at it is I like to look at it as we're a tree. And I know this is like a weird metaphor, but for me, it works. Okay, if you think about it, visualize a tree. A tree, when they grow, they go through rain, they go through sun. Okay, and the same thing is with the person. We go through rain can symbolize the pain that we go through in life, and the sun can represent the joy that we go through, okay? And it needs all of that. It needs a foundation, and it needs the sun, it needs the rain, okay, right? And what happens is the tree eventually grows from all of that, just as we do. We grow from the pain, we grow from the joy, we grow from it all, okay? And the tree can stand on its own. It should be able to stand on its own. It doesn't need other people. It doesn't need other trees. I mean, it does, but it doesn't, if that makes sense. Just think of the tree by itself, though. Now, say this tree specifically is a pine tree, and if you believe in Christmas, you don't have to believe in Christmas. You don't have to celebrate it, but if you believe in the holiday, say we take this pine tree, and now its purpose, so it's going to pursue its purpose, and its purpose is to be used as a Christmas tree, okay? So say it's to be used as a Christmas tree. Now, we're going to take that Christmas tree, and it stands on its own, and it found its purpose on its own, okay? And now its purpose, we're going to put ornaments on it, and the ornaments are going to complement it, right? But they're not going to make the tree. Like, the tree is its own tree. Now, let's say those ornaments are people, okay? So we're going to put the people on the tree, metaphorically. This isn't realistically. I'm not putting people on a tree. But say the ornaments represent the people. They're going to complement us.
Maybe you're putting ornaments as people.
No, I'm not. They're going to complement us, okay? So that's just how it should go in life. People that come into your life should complement you but not complete you. And I think that's how people go entirely wrong with their relationships. They don't value the relationship with themselves first. So they put people, they're like, oh, I'm going to achieve this relationship. The moment I get in a relationship, a romantic relationship, I'm going to achieve everything that I've ever wanted. No, you're not. Because you have to value yourself and know who you are first. Now, for you, how do you place your significance and importance with your relationships? Like, what's your tier?
It's like any relationship, I feel like you have to have, like, tiers, and, like, you have to follow by those. Like, for me, like, always, like, God or, like, whatever you believe in, I feel like that should always come first because, I mean, yeah, like you said.
That's another relationship I didn't mention.
Yeah, but, like you said, like, yourself's always going to be there, but, like, another person that's always going to be there with you is God or whatever you believe in, right? But in general, I think that definitely comes first. And then the next one, I feel like you can't, like, really simplify it. So I guess it's, like, kind of like both. On the same tier would probably be, like, school and then yourself. Like, anything that's with yourself is definitely, like, very important because, like you said, the only person that's going to be there with you is yourself. Mm-hmm. And then definitely another one would probably be, like, family, for sure. And then whatever, like, if you're in a relationship, maybe that person would come next. But definitely, like, you have to have those tiers and, like, know, like, your worth and stuff.
And see, I think it's distinct for everybody because everyone's had their own experiences. Some people do not have a good relationship with certain people, their family, or they don't have a good relationship with their friends.
Oh, what I forgot to say is, like, relationships. Like, if you're in a relationship with somebody, like, that would also be, like, friends, too.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense.
I'm, like, forgetting people over here.
Well, in a way it wouldn't, though, because, like, say if that is somebody that you're going to marry. Then they become your family.
I know, but, like, realistically, if you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, like, I mean, you can't really, like, think that far ahead.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how serious that is.
You know, because I feel like...
It's different for everybody,
I feel like you like, look at that way, and
we're
the
talking
next
based
week, you're
on
not
personal
even with
experiences. Yeah, we're talking based on personal experiences. Okay, but what I was trying to mention is the fact if you're not independent and you don't value yourself, you have to put standards, okay? And I say this so this is so important. I emphasize this so much because if you're not independent, when you go into a relationship with somebody, and they say anybody can leave you at any time. And that's the whole point I'm trying to get here. That's just like an ornament, okay? An ornament can fall off the tree. That person could just leave.
What I'm saying is, like, you know about the ornaments? Like, you know the, like, little people that, like, people get their selves printed on?
Yeah, I get, okay.
That's what I was saying,
okay,
not
okay.
actually people.
But I'm being metaphorical. I'm not actually saying, okay, but you get the point.
I know, but you know, like, faces and stuff get printed.
Okay. So, but what I was trying to say is the ornaments can fall off the tree. Similarly, how do people can leave you? They can just leave, okay? So the way you have to look at it is you have to be, I'm independent on my own. I value myself because if somebody, say you get in a relationship with somebody, let's give an example. Say you get in a relationship with somebody and you're an independent person, okay? I'm going to give an example of an independent person and a person that's not independent. So say you're an independent person, you have your own routine, you have your own thing going on. You don't need a relationship, but you maybe like if someone comes along, you meet the right person, you're like, okay, I'm down for this. Like I'll be willing to, share parts of my life with somebody. And, I'm older talking about this than you. Like we're kind of at different stages. I mean, I'm 18 and she's 16. So, I mean, I don't know, but I'm talking about this. So let me just keep going. So say you're independent, you've got your own thing going on, but you're willing like to be like in a relationship. You're open to it. If you're not open to it, then that's fine. But say somebody comes around and you're like, oh, this is like, but you're not like seeking it. You don't need it. It's not a need. It's kind of like a want. Like you're like, you don't mind it, but you're happy without it. I will say
with like any relationship, you should never depend on happiness from that person or anybody.
That's what I'm trying to get here.
Those people do not stay around. Like, no. Let's be realistic. Like,
not everyone,
but like, not everyone's gonna stick around.
And most of the time, people don't. I mean, it depends. Like, it depends on how serious you are. But you always have to go into it being like, I'm gonna be independent on my own. And say someone comes around and you decide that person needs to be. When you're independent, you're gonna attract someone who's equally independent. You know why? Because you have that standard that I'm independent. I'm not willing to be like give up everything that I do for you. Okay, and that's not how a relationship should be. Because you should be able to, even with friendship. Because if your friend's saying, oh, like, I expect you to sacrifice this for me, that's not a true friend. Because a true friend's going to say, I support you. You should pursue whatever you want. And you shouldn't have to sacrifice anything. Like, say, for example, you're somebody like, you play basketball, right? Okay, so you play basketball. Say you make a friend or you have a friend and they're like, oh, like I don't really want you to play basketball. Like, you should like come to dance class with me. You should come to dance class with me all the time and just give up playing basketball. But in your mind, you're like, I'm independent. I'm passionate about basketball. I'm not going to give that up. And that's setting boundaries and setting standards for yourself, saying, you know what? You don't have to be a part of my life. You don't have to come in my life. You don't have to play basketball. I mean, I want to play basketball, but I'm going to do it with or without you. That's the kind of mindset you have to go in with it. Because if you don't, people are going to take advantage of that. People are going to say, oh, so you gave up basketball for me. You're going to give up everything else in your life for me. You know what I mean? Okay, so what I was getting to the point now, say you're not independent, and I don't mean this in a mean way, okay, because sometimes it's from past experiences and it's things we have to work on, and we're constantly working on this. It took me a while to figure out how to be independent and be able to go on my own and be able to do this and do that and not need people to be part of my life, because it is hard to push people away when you know, like, you really care about people and you're like, you know what, they're not respecting my boundaries, they're not giving me my independence, and they try to take that from you, and you're like, I can't put up with this anymore, because it starts to drain your energy, like, majorly, you know what I mean? And I know you've probably had experience with this. Have you had any experiences with this where you feel like people invaded your independence?
Oh yeah, for sure. Just like in general, I feel like some people are like that because either like they just get jealous.
Well, I feel like it's okay. So when it comes to romantic relationships, I think it's a sense of control. Mm-hmm. I think people try to control.
That's something that's like, I am not going to do.
And I mean, people are just controlling. I don't know. But friendships, I feel like it can be the same thing, but I also think sometimes friends are selfish. Some of them are. I'm not saying everyone's selfish. Anybody can be selfish, but sometimes people are selfish.
I feel like a lot of the time,
and expect you to give up your life for theirs.
If you're like in a group of friends, especially like, what is it, like a trio?
Yeah,
I feel like those two, like, especially with girls though, you always see this, like, there's two girls that, like, at the beginning, like, I feel like we're like friends or whatever, and then whatever, you end up joining them or whatever.
Oh my goodness.
They end up talking behind your back, and then all of a sudden you're with the other girl, and the other girl's not with you guys. And then like the other one's trying to talk behind her back, and you're like, what's going on? Like, it's so weird. It's with
so
boys
fake.
And everything. Yeah.
It's so fake. Okay, so now say you get in a relationship, and we're going back and forth, but say you get in a relationship, you're not independent, and that's okay. So say this person, you're going to attract someone who's equally like that, because you always attract what you're like. if you don't put your standards, like you don't set standards. If you're like, okay, I'm setting my standards, I only want someone who's independent, then you're going to get someone who's independent because you're setting your standards and you're only going to expect someone like that. Now, say you set your standards and you're not setting standards. You're just kind of like settling for whoever. No offense, but say you're settling for somebody and you settle for somebody who's not independent, somebody who expects you to live off of them, or like somebody who expects you to do everything for them and expects you to kind of conform your lifestyle to their lifestyle, but they don't do that equally. Like, you know what I mean? So what's going to happen there is you're going to take everything that you once did and you're going to conform it to their life. So say, for example, give me an example. Like, okay, say you go to the gym a lot. Like you go to the gym and you work out and they're like, I don't want you to do that anymore. And I know there's people that have had experiences where they were like professionals at what they did. Like they were professionals at certain sports and their significant other told them to give it up. And there's people that did, and then there's people that didn't. And the people that didn't, they ended up leaving that person and then they ended up finding someone better. You know why? Because they found someone who's equally independent. But you end up conforming your lifestyle to their lifestyle. What's going to happen is one day they're going to leave you. I'm going to be honest with you. They're probably going to leave you. And you know why? Because a person, the way they look at that is when they see somebody and they're like, okay, they conformed everything to me. They take advantage of that. And it's like, I feel like this is a lot for guys. I don't mean to be biased here, but I feel like guys, if you're like, okay, like you take all of your stuff and you're like, oh, like I'm going to just change everything. I'm going to live for them. And you like wait on them and you're like always like, you know, doing everything for them.
Never wait on anybody.
And you're like say, like, okay, now we're going to speak more in your age, like say for like, okay, say you're like constantly waiting on a text from a guy. Okay, that's like waiting on a guy. That's not being independent.
Like you have to,
when
like,
you're independent,
yeah.
You would not wait on a guy's text. You'd be like, I'm going to live my life. When he texts me, he does. If he doesn't, he doesn't. I'm not going to sit there and make a big deal out of it. And I know feelings can get in the way and emotions, but when you're independent, you're not going to wait on that. And
so what's the phrase? If he wanted to, he would.
Yeah, if he wanted to, he would. Follow that phrase because it's so true.
I feel like every girl does
Kelly
that.
would get ticked off with me when I'd say that to her. Anytime she was like in some sort of relationship thing, I'm like, Kelly, and they like something didn't go as planned. You know, Kelly's independent, but emotions get the best of us in some situations. And there were some situations when Kelly was like, you know, we're learning. We're constantly learning. We're constantly trying to figure this stuff out. Okay. So sometimes we're going to find ourselves. So we're going to catch ourselves in phrases where we're being a little too dependent on somebody and dependent on their attention. So I always told Kelly, I was like, if he wanted to, he would. And Kelly would get
I would get so mad.
Because Kelly, like, you know, in the back of her mind, what she wants isn't happening. And I'm telling her the raw truth. I'm like, if he wanted to, he wouldn't. It's true. Even if a girl, if she wanted to, she would too. Because we can't talk only about boys. I mean, girls, the same thing. If she wanted to text you, she would text you. If she wanted to hang out, she would hang out with you. If he wanted to hang out, he would hang out with you. And they're going to find a way. Tell me not. They're going to find a way. Because when someone really actually wants to be around you and they're going to pursue you, they're going to be persistent. Because they're going to be persistent because they want you and they don't want anyone else to have you. And I'm going to be honest with you. If a guy kind of just tosses you to the side and doesn't value you, you have to say, you know what? I'm going to reevaluate my situation. I'm going to value myself enough to say, I don't need this. Okay? Because you know when someone doesn't value you because they kind of just toss you around like you're nothing. And when someone's never going to put themselves in a position to lose you if they actually value you. If they take the time, they're like, yeah, I don't want to be in this relationship. They don't value you. They don't value the relationship. So they're putting themselves and you in a position where they can say, you know what? I don't really care what happens here. Because I have the option of losing you, but I'm not making a big deal out of it. So obviously they don't value you. You need to actually take that, reflect on that. That's what you need to do. When you're in a relationship, reflect on the way they treat you, reflect on their actions, because that's what's going to tell you the ultimate, like, that's going to like ultimately give you the rundown of how they're going to treat you in the future as well. Because how someone treats you now is going to impact you in the
like
future.
Something that, like, even like, okay, this relationships, I mean, friends can't really do this, but you know, like once a cheater, always a cheater. Like once a player, always a player. Like,
I know. And a lot of people,
until they like actually mature, and that might not be till they're like in their 40s, to be honest.
See, I know a lot of people oppose that idea because they're like, people can change. Do I think people can change? Now, this is my personal belief. Habits become your character. You know what I'm saying? They say your habits become your character. And I think, honestly, it is hard to change. We're constantly growing. And I think it depends on the age range. Because I think when we're young, sometimes we're kind of figuring things out. We're going to make choices that probably are not the most beneficial for us. And we're still learning. So when you're in relationships when you're young, like, you can't expect that relationship to be a mature relationship, okay? People are going to make mistakes, okay? But I'm talking and I'm speaking generally. Even in friendships, we're all going to make mistakes, okay? But do I think people can change? It depends on how habitual those habits are for me. Like, I feel like if they're constantly lying, like, how am I going to trust you? Because you've ingrained lies into my brain. How am I going to trust you, you know? So I feel like, I don't know though, but I feel like you're kind of right with that once a player, always a player, because I mean, I've heard experiences where people are like, when they were younger, they acted like that and they still act like that. So it's like, honestly, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see and find out with people that we know and see if that happens. But in my experience, I feel like I've thought people have changed. There's people that I've come across, people I talked to when I was younger, friendships. I'm speaking on a friendship level because people that I was friends with when I was younger, and I remember they acted a certain way and like they lied and stuff like that. And when I got older, I was like, I'm going to give them another shot. Try to see what happens. Because, you know, I kind of believe in, yeah, do you believe in second chances?
Okay, it kind of depends. I don't know. Depending on whoever, like, ended it in, like, relationships or friendships, it kind of depends. Like, okay, for instance, somebody, like, cheated or played me. Like, that's never going to happen. Or, okay. I mean, who would, though?
Yeah.
I mean, really depending. Like, no matter how much you like
depends
them,
on
you really
the context
gotta think that
of the situation, right?
Like, no matter how much you like somebody, like, never, like, be like, oh, well, like, I mean, okay, who cares? Like, I'll just, like, let that pass by. I'm going to get back with them. You know, like, never let that happen. Like, always remember deep down some of the stuff they could have, like, traded you. But, like, in general, I feel like with friendships, I feel like you could always give a friendship a second shot. Like, even, like, if you were in a relationship with somebody, I kind of end up staying friends with, like, any of my exes just because. But in general, like, you know, you could always stay friends. Like, I mean, there's nothing bad with just being friends with somebody or just giving a second shot to a friendship. You know, maybe not be as close to them or, like, rely on them for anything. You should never rely on anybody for anything. But
the way I look at it is second chances. Okay, so like I was saying with this friend.
I feel like with relationships, though, I feel like sometimes you can't give second chances. Just because, like, if that person had a chance and they screwed it up,
then why give them another? That's like handing someone. So see, I saw something. Someone said metaphorically. I bring a lot of metaphors into these
hanging
chats.
people on trees.
No, I did not say that. But
Ornaments.
it's like okay. So they said it's like when you get in a relationship, it's like handing someone a gun, and I don't mean this in like a scary way.
She's using some weird metaphors.
It means like handing someone a gun and pointing it directly at your heart, and hoping they're not going to shoot. Because, you know, when you get in a relationship, there's the possibility and there's the vulnerability that you're going to get hurt out of it. And I think you can get hurt in friendships.
But I feel like in general, you have to have that hurt.
Yeah, but that's why I'm talking about being independent. Because if you're not independent enough, like I was, you know, okay, let me talk about the gun metaphor first. I don't mean to be scary. But it's like someone pointing a gun directly at your heart and hoping they're not going to shoot. And say they shot and they broke your heart. And now giving them a second chance is like handing them a gun again.
Yeah, like for instance, you get all healed and everything, and then they come around for a second chance. Like, why give it to them?
And yeah.
Like, you already know they're probably just going to...
And then they might look at it...
Shoot the little pew-pew gun.
Yeah, and they might look at it as like, oh, like, I didn't hurt you that bad. You have no idea how you impacted somebody. Like, I don't know how I've impacted people. I hope I've impacted them in a beneficial way, and I hope to still do that. But you're going to hurt... Why'd you keep doing that to me? You keep giggling. Okay, but somebody could look back and they're not going to understand what they did. Like, there's probably people in our lives that don't understand ways they've impacted us. But like I was talking about with this friend, I gave this friend a second chance. Sure enough, I was wrong. I thought I was right. I was like, this person's probably grown up. No, I think they got worse, if I'm going to be honest. They lied more and everything. I was like, yeah, and I backed right out of that friendship. And you know why I did? Because I was independent. When I was younger, I was more dependent on social validation. And I think we all find ourselves in that situation when we're kind of dependent on social validation. And social validation is where we feel, okay, we have to have this amount of friends, we have to do this, do that, we have to go out with our friends. When they invite us, we have to conform to whatever they do because it's socially validating us. It's making us feel accepted. And as humans, we like to feel accepted. We like the feeling of feeling accepted. You know, we do. We like that feeling. So if our friends are like, oh, like say someone's like, hey, Kelly, like, let's go hang out, but you have a responsibility to do something, you're going to be like, oh, I have the fear of missing out. But I also like, it's just a subconscious thing where we know we want to feel accepted and we depend on that social validation. So we're going to go do that. Instead, we could be independent, focusing on ourselves. And let me tell you the hard truth. Those people that invited you out probably aren't going to care about you in the next 5-10 years. They're not. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. And people are like, oh no, I've been friends with this person for my whole life. They care about me so much. Sometimes things change, sometimes people change. And you always have to go about life not looking out for yourself like in a selfish way, but looking out for yourself where you know you're mentally healthy and your well-being comes first. So like we were talking about with that tier of importance and the significance of relationships, what's the relationship that you have with God? What's the relationship you have with yourself? What's the relationship you have with your family? Or, you know, maybe family's not your most important relationship because of some sort of experience, but maybe your friends are. But I'm going to be honest with you. I feel it depends on that for everyone. But I'm talking about in general, like how we go about things vaguely. Like your friends that maybe you like text or like, give me some examples here. Like, you know, friends that you see at school or your friends that you like, you know, like those, just your friends. But like they're not gonna be there forever, okay? They're not. I mean, you might get lucky. You might get lucky if you get some people that are like that for you. Like your family, like if your relationship with your family is really strong, like I'm not saying like they're not gonna be there for you forever, but you have to think about the future, way in the future when you're independent and you're doing things on your own. But what I wanted to say about okay, so if a person leaves you and you're dependent on them, because I keep going back and forth, but if a person leaves you and you're dependent on them, when they go to leave you, you're not going to know how to handle yourself because you're going to be so independent. I mean, so dependent on that validation from that person. So when we get in a relationship, we're getting validated. That person's like, we're feeling accepted. They brought us, we're in a relationship with them. We're committed to them. They're giving us this romantic attention. They're giving us this affection. And it feels good, right? It feels good. We're being accepted. And we like that feeling, right? As humans, we like that feeling of being accepted. So that's when our emotions get in the way. And that's when that person, all of a sudden, if we become dependent on that affection, it's like a dopamine effect. You constantly crave it. Like it's the same thing. It's like the same thing as like being like constantly like that validation from social media, which we'll talk about another time, but like you constantly want that validation. So what happens is you become dependent on that affection. And sometimes we're independent people and we fall into that trap. And when we become like obsessed with that, when that person goes to leave us, if they do, that person, but usually if you're in a toxic relationship like that, it's probably not going to end well. It's probably going to end. We're not going to know how to handle ourselves. And that's when you see girls become very emotional. Guys too, not just girls, but you become very emotional and you realize like, why did I do that to myself? Because all your emotion and everything you did in life included that person. When you're in a relationship, I don't think everything should include that person. Mm-hmm. I think you need to have, the way I look at it, this is my personal belief. Everyone's going to have, like we said, everyone has their own significance and importance in this. I look at it as you have your life, I have my life, but we can also kind of like build things together. It's just like that tree effect. You're a tree, I'm a tree, and then now our roots are going to grow together and like build another tree. And I don't mean to say that in like a amusing way. Whoa. No, I mean that in like a
you want to grow a tree?
I mean this, stop. Oh my goodness. I mean this in kind of like a metaphorical way of like growing a relationship together, okay? I don't mean this in any weird way. But that's what I mean by that. You have to be independent. You have to stand on your own, have your own foundation, and be strong in your beliefs. And I think that's important. If someone doesn't believe what you believe and someone's telling you to change, you shouldn't have to change. And I know it's so cliche because
like, no matter how much you like somebody, you should mm-hmm. never change like the way you act. They should never change the way like they act. Like somebody has to change themselves for you. Like you are not the right pair of them.
No.
Because you're going to meet somebody that has the same stuff and mm-hmm. you're going to be like, whoa.
Yeah, okay. You might not realize it because you might come across somebody and you're like, oh, this person's a perfect fit for me. But then they want you to change something about yourself. Or maybe they're not even asking you to change, but you feel you have to change. Like say, for example, they're like a certain aesthetic or they're like into certain things that you're not into. Like I've noticed people tend to do this effect. Or you notice when you're talking to somebody and you're like they're like, oh, so like what's your favorite food? And you're like, oh, like what's your favorite food, Kelly?
I would probably say like Chinese or anything.
Okay, so Kelly's like, my favorite food is Chinese. And they're like, oh, me too.
Oh, there was this
my favorite food is
once.
Chinese.
Oh my gosh, there was this girl, okay? I'm sorry, but sometimes doing online school, you can meet some interesting people. Mm-hmm. This girl, I swear, like I'm not saying names or anything, but
they were young.
Yeah,
right?
we were really young, but after that, I didn't want friends. I got scared. I got really scared. Okay, but like anything this girl, like, I mean, she kind of looked like me a little bit, mm-hmm. but like, I was like, when I was like, oh yeah, my favorite food's like, I think during that time, I sometimes would like lie to people because I honestly sometimes when I first meet somebody and I don't know them, I'm not going to tell you my favorite food, okay? So like
goodness.
you're around me, you know
It's
my favorite
confidential.
food. Yeah, it's confidential over here. But like in general, I was like, oh yeah, like I like macaroni and cheese or what is it? Mac and cheese. I keep calling it macaroni.
Wait, I thought your favorite food used to be
I'm still saying
sauerkraut.
Bro, is that what I think I did say sauerkraut.
Yeah, I thought you told me this story.
Okay, hold up. Okay, yeah, I was like, oh yeah, like my favorite food's like sauerkraut. I think I honestly said lasagna. I do not like lasagna.
Okay.
I mean, it's okay, but like it's not my favorite food. And then I was like, oh yeah, I like mac and cheese. And then, you know, she's like, oh, I love sauerkraut. I'm like, oh, you do? She's like, yeah, I love all those foods too. And I was like, so what's your favorite food? She's like, all the food you like. And I was like, okay, what's going on?
But see, that's that social validation, and that's us feeling like in our relationships we have to be accepted by them. And yeah, it's a good thing to be accepted by people, I guess. But at the same time, you shouldn't fear the fear of being rejected. And that's why you have to be independent. Say, I'm not going to fear being rejected. If they don't like me, I'm good because I'm content on my own. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like me, I'm somebody who's, I'm very complex and I'm all over the place. And you know that. And I'm kind of somebody that honestly, if I'm not your cup of tea, I'm not your cup of tea. I really don't care. You can go find you something else to drink.
Hit her up.
You know that song? No.
She's single.
No. Okay. Stop. We're not talking about this. I'm content on my own, right? What are you doing? But that's how you have to go about things. Is you have to say, you know what, people, and that's a hard place to get at, to be honest. It's hard to be like that because a lot of us, it's like society has told us we have to be accepted by this, we have to do this, we have to do that. Like everyone does social media. We all assume everyone does social media. Like everyone nowadays, like when people are like coming up to you, if they find you attractive or they just want your snap, like, can I get your snap? Like not everybody has snap. And we've socially conformed that. We're like, oh, everybody assumes and everybody is like, everybody accepts that way of like communicating. I don't.
Honestly, that's what I mean. It's kind of annoying when like boys like come up to you and ask for your snap because most of the time, honestly, they probably just leave you one open.
And okay,
but to be honest, if a boy asks you for your number, like if I'm really interested in a boy, I'm probably gonna ask for the number. I'm gonna start doing that. Freak the whole Snapchat thing. I'm gonna get your number.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's everybody is different.
No, I'm not gonna deal with Snap.
But the way I look at it, you notice how like the people that are like, okay, so say for example, you're scared to go up to somebody, you're scared to get rejected. Keep that in mind that who cares what they think.
I don't care.
Be like, I don't care, because that shows A, you're independent, and B, it shows you're confident. And independence and confidence tend to tie into each other, if that makes sense. Because when you're independent, you're most likely confident.
Okay, quick story. Okay, I was out with like a couple of my friends, and like this boy came up to me or something. Wait, no, I think, did he come up to me or I went up to him? I don't remember. I think he came up to me, and I remember this kid was like really scared to get my snap. I don't even think he ever added me back, to be honest. He was too scared. This kid, he was like too scared. Like his friends had to ask to like get my snap, and I was like,
well, he might have been nervous.
But the thing is like literally, wait, hold up. I think I asked for somebody's snap. Okay, we're changing the story. That story is never even going to be able to.
Well, proceed.
Okay, anyways, a different story now. Okay. But, okay, I asked somebody for their snap once, and I'm like, oh yeah, can I get your snap or whatever? And, you know, people are sometimes like, no, I have a girlfriend, I have a boyfriend. Honestly, I don't really care. Like, I don't care if you have a boyfriend or girlfriend. I'm just going to keep asking. So then, you know, whatever, I was kind of like, okay, whatever. And I started kind of just get like.
Okay, one thing I want to point out here, though.
Hold on.
I want to say, if somebody asks for your snap, it doesn't automatically mean that they want to date you or like think that you're attractive. Maybe they just want like to like be friends. Because I know that's how Kelly is. Like people think, oh, she got my snap or my number. She thought I was attractive. Kelly goes up to everybody, okay?
Everybody.
I don't mean to like kill you, like kill your self-esteem here, but Kelly goes up to everybody. She's very friendly. Okay, so keep going.
Okay, but in general, when I like went up to him, I think he thought it was like he thought that I was gonna get upset. And I was like, I don't care. And he's like, oh. And then I just kind of walked away. He's like, wait, what's your snap? And I was like, oh.
But see, guys, that's the opposite reaction. When you act
like you don't care, that's when they care.
That's what I'm talking about. Because when you're independent and you say, I don't really care if I get rejected. I'm just going to do it to do it. And I'm going to try. And say you do get rejected, that person, the way you handle rejection, they're going to be like, oh, okay.
Like, if you start getting upset, they're going to be like, oh, thank God I didn't get their snap.
Exactly.
Or, like, in, like, a relationship, if you start showing, like, you're upset or something, they're like, oh, thank God I broke up with her. Or thank God I broke up with him.
Yeah, like when someone goes to break up with you and they're like, oh, I don't really think this is going to work anymore. I don't want to, like, you know, I don't want to be with you anymore. I think we're better off as friends or blah, 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 you know. They said, I'm sorry. They say that. And then I think a lot of people are automatically assuming like, no, like, let's work on this. Let's do that. For me and for you, I think the best way to go about that is you have to know your worth and say, I'm independent. Okay. You know. Okay, good luck with whatever you decide to do. You know, it's fine. I felt the same way. Because the way you have to look at it is I value myself. Put your standards high. And people are going to be like, that's kind of arrogant. Because, like, you can't, like, that's unattainable. Don't put your standards that high. Like, we live in a society where you can't do that. I mean, we have kids asking for kids snaps. No, set your standards high. If you want a guy that's more serious, if that's what you want, then set your standards high. Now, if you don't want something like that, then do you? But if you're somebody who's like, I want something serious, I want a guy that really actually, or a girl that really values me, set your standards to where you want to sit. And it might take some time for you to find somebody like that. And you might go through some experiences. Because let me say, when you go through relationships, you have to go through some to actually find that person. Or like those people that, because I don't believe in like one soulmate or anything like that. You know, like I believe like, I don't know. That could be.
I don't know if I believe in soulmates.
I don't know. I think there's people that we come across that we click with and people that we connect with on a different level than we do with other people. But I think every relationship's different than any of them. Friendships and everything. I think friendships you can even connect with. And I don't think a heartbreak has to only come from relationships either. I think it can come from friendships. I think it can come from family. I think it can come from a lot of relationships. Sometimes
putting people on Christmas trees. Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to get at is to get in any relationship, the relationship you first have to actually be content in is the relationship with yourself. The relationship with yourself, and I think for me it goes the relationship with God as well, because I think those two relationships, the relationship with yourself and the relationship you have with your higher being,
but I feel
if
like
you believe
have
in
to
that,
have a relationship with yourself and have a healthy relationship with yourself, and like feel like, you know, like you're happy with yourself,
satisfied.
And you feel happy. Yeah, exactly. Before you actually are like, okay, like I'm gonna get more closer to like God or whatever you believe in, you know, like.
Because if you're not content with yourself and you're like, say you struggle with like anxiety or anything like that, you have to figure that out. You have to sit back and not like sit back, but you have to work on yourself.
Some people don't understand is like when getting into a relationship, like I feel like what they don't understand is if you're not healthy, like happy or healthy with yourself, like you should never like actually get into something that
How
you're
can
not
you
ready
love
for.
someone else if you can't love yourself?
Exactly. Like if you're going to get in a relationship with somebody, like I don't even care. You shouldn't even be in the talking stage with somebody or even like be telling anybody you like them if you don't actually love yourself and you're going to hurt somebody else because you're just going to let that go.
And I think that we fear that we're going to be like rejected. Like say we don't feel content with ourselves. Like there's a lot of girls, a lot of guys too that feel insecure and they're looking for that confidence from someone else. And you can't do that. It's unhealthy. So say you feel insecure in yourself and you're like, I don't like where I'm at. I don't like the way I feel about myself. And you're looking for someone else to feed that into you. It's not going to end well. Like I was saying, when they go to leave you, who's going to give you that confidence? You have to be confident enough on your own to be able to say, I feel good about myself. That's why people who feel good about themselves have higher probability of finding someone who they're compatible with, because they're going to find someone who does give them affection. Obviously, when you're in a relationship or a friendship, you're going to find people that are going to be on that same wavelength as you, but you're going to be confident enough that if that person was to leave, if they did ever, to be on your own, because you already know what it's like to be on your own. You know what it's like to, and you love yourself enough to say, I'm okay with this. You have to be content. And if you're not, do not put yourself in a position to get in relationships with people. And sometimes we need that support from people, but ultimately at the end of the day, we have to feel content on our own. Because imagine if you're sitting there, you're not having someone that's going to constantly say, oh, you're gorgeous, you're pretty. You don't need that. You need this or this and that, you know, constantly giving you all this feedback and saying, oh, your body looks perfect and this and that. You can't have that. You have to say, I'm content with myself. I like the way I feel. I like the way I look. Because the moment you feel that, you're going to attract people that respect you. Because people are going to respect you when you're confident in yourself. And it takes people time to get to that place. I'm not saying it's easy. And I'm not saying you have to be, there's no like, I don't believe there's 100% like confidence and independence in yourself, okay? you just have to be at a point where, yeah, you're going to have days where you don't feel good. I'm not saying every day is going to be perfect, but you have to come to the point where you can say that I do feel confident enough in myself to be in a relationship with someone else because I can be on my own. And think of it like as a glass of water. You have to have your glass completely filled to be able to fill, like, you can't like constantly fill someone else's glass. And sometimes we're people that are independent and we do find ourselves with people that are dependent and they're feeding off of our energy. And it's like, whoa, it's like, it's toxic. It's overwhelming because we're somebody that worked on ourselves and then we're like, oh, we have to give people all this energy and all this support. You know what I mean? So it's like, you have to be able to say my cup's full and I can like give and receive the same amount that someone else is giving me because you want to be healthy. I'm not saying this in a selfish way either for your own self, but you want to be healthy. You want to be healthy with the person you're with in your relationships, friendships, God. Like, you want to have even a good relationship with whatever you believe in as well. Even your family, you know? You don't want to be like say, like, if you find yourself in a depressed way, your family, you need your family too. You know, if you're close with your family and you're young, your family needs you too as well because it's like that confidence, that independence. You need to be able to give and receive the same amount of energy. You know? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm going from there? But for me, I mean, the relationship with yourself is everything. You have one body, it's you, and you need to figure that out. You need to figure out how to navigate your relationships, but the only way you can do that is the moment that you know who you are. And I think a lot of people don't know who they are. Because they crave everyone else and they're listening to what everyone else says. Everyone else is like, hey, you're this, you're that. You're not that. Sit back. Quiet all those little voices down and say, who am I? Ask yourself that. If I could tell you to do anything at the end of this, after listening to this, ask yourself, who am I? Who am I without everyone else's beliefs or any external factors? Yes, those external factors do compose us because people have inspired us. They've supported us through our lives. But ask yourself who you are. Who do you feel content being? Like, what do you want to do?
Who are you?
Yeah, who am I?
Who are you?
Do you know who you are? So I think that's how I'm going to end that. And ask yourself who you are and reflect on your relationships with people and value yourself. Don't let people devalue you at all, okay? If somebody doesn't want to be with you, if somebody doesn't want to be your friend, if somebody doesn't, respect you, then just let them go. Just be like, it's fine. I'm fine. Because you're going to come across people that will, okay? And you might not realize it now, but you will. And tell me, you've definitely had that experience.
Oh, yeah.
Where you thought someone was like perfect and they were like the perfect mold of everything that you wanted them to be. And nobody's perfect.
Really quick is before you get like in a relationship with somebody, they will act like they're like perfect.
Yeah.
And then they just drop all of that. Like,
but that's
like,
what
it's a big
about.
front.
But that's what we were talking about. How like I said, like Kelly said she liked Chinese, and then someone's like, oh yeah, I like Chinese, and then you're like, oh, like, well, it's different when you meet somebody that doesn't have all the same interests as you.
She loves Chinese, but then I was like, yeah, I love sushi. She's like, I don't like that.
But you might not realize it, but you don't want to be the exact same as the person that you're like friends with or talking to or dating, because if you are, then where's the fun in that? What you might look at is, oh, this is kind of like cringy, or I do this is kind of like, nobody likes that. They might actually find that, the right person's going to find that fascinating. Like, say you're interested in rocks. I don't know why this came to me.
Anything you pick rocks.
Say you like rocks and minerals. You have a fascination with it. People wouldn't assume you do, okay? Because maybe you're somebody who's like really like sporty, and you're like, oh, I just have this weird fascination with rocks. You like to like glue eyeballs. I mean, like rocks and minerals. I'm like talking about soil and stuff. I don't know why that came into my head. Say you have this weird fascination with that, and you don't tell anybody because you're like afraid they're gonna judge you. Why? Why be afraid people are gonna judge you? If they don't like you for your rock fascination, they don't like you for your rock fascination, your mineral fascination.
You might find somebody to dig soil with you.
This isn't like I'm not interested in this, but if you are, good for you. Like I'm not against it.
I might go start digging some soil.
Okay. So say that you're interested in that and you're like, I'm not going to tell anybody that. But the right person, say you're like, I'm just going to tell them. Yeah, so something, they're like, oh, what do you like to do in your free time? Well, I like to like search for rocks. Okay. I'm sorry. I like to search for rocks. I like to search for minerals and stuff. And they're like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. Like, I'll go with you sometime. Or like, you like bird watching.
Bro, that's not.
I'm sorry. These are just random examples. But say I like bird watching. The right person's going to find that fascinating, okay? Don't devalue yourself. That's a value you have. You value that, and that's a part of you. Be yourself. That's cliche, I know, be yourself, but seriously, okay? And ask yourself who you are, and ask yourself in these relationships. But it's really, I think it's kind of annoying when people try to conform to who you are because they want you to like them. Don't do that, okay? Because that person's actually, when they find out that you didn't really like that, they're going to be like, why'd you lie to me in the first place? Just be yourself. Don't have the fear of being rejected, because if somebody doesn't want to be a part of your life and they don't want you a part of their life, then they shouldn't be a part of your life, period, okay?